As we are getting started, and there's no reason in the world not to just begin the fun. So, welcome to Life Writing Live, June 6th. Yeah, I'm getting sound on the other on the YouTube. Let me turn that off. Okay, great. So we're getting started. Tanana Reeve will chip in, but we are 2 weeks out from filming our movie. So we are like deep into pre-production, spending literally hours every day on pre-production. So she hopefully will drop in for a few minutes. I might have to end things early. We will see. It's just that every single day we're either doing previs using a particular piece of software that creates a 3D representational model of our location so we can look at every shot, every angle, every shadow. It's an amazing piece of software. I mean, it's very advanced stuff. And when our director of photography, Kenzin Takahashi, showed it to us, we were like saying, "Oh yeah, we need this guy. This is what we need," because otherwise you're trying to figure it out on the set, which is exactly the wrong thing to do. You get it all figured out ahead of time so that hopefully when you hit the set, you simply execute the plan that you already have and solve the problems that will come up along the way, understanding that those problems are inevitable, that there is literally no way to avoid problems, especially if you're moving between one level of your life and another. The things that have stopped you from evolving to that next level are the very things you need to deal with. So the problems it's like walking into a gym and somebody says, "These are the weights that you have to lift in order to be as strong as you want to be, in order to compete in this game or look good in the mirror," whatever it is. Those weights are not your enemies. They are actually your allies in that thing if you embrace it properly. But that is hard, So we're dealing with that stuff, and I'll tell you one thing. And like I said, Tanana Reeve, will come in here and say hi at some point for briefly. But there is nobody in the world that I'd rather be in the trenches with in terms of dealing with this than my baby girl. I mean, just she, in every single way, we wake up in the morning and smile and giggle. We can't believe where we are in life. And in the evenings, we always, even if we've had this, and the fights that we have, we work very hard to keep them fair. But I don't believe that we should avoid them. That if you are trying to create anything, if you're trying to do anything, you will notice that you have arguments. You're arguing, should I do it this way? Should I do it this way? This. So if two people are working in close harmony, those internal arguments become externalized into two different people, each of whom has a separate ego, each of whom has slightly different values, slightly different strategies, slightly different intentions. So there has to be this. Otherwise, somebody's not being honest. So, and I desperately want her to be honest. So, even if we've had a tough day in that sense, in the evening, every night, we're watching Mystery Science Theater, we're hugging, we kiss each other goodnight. Always. That's how we start. That's how we end. That's the deal. And we've kept that to each other for for 26 years, and so what we are, let me just kind of allow people to welcome each other so we can get over that. So the first thing I'd like you to do is to unmute yourselves and say hi, because it's Friday and it's time for us to celebrate again. So
Good
Hello.
morning, everyone.
Hey,
Hello.
Annie. How do you do?
Back
Good to
here.
see you again.
Have a bit of sanity in my life.
yes, that's right. That's
Yay.
right. So at any rate, asking yourself if well, let me read you a little essay. And sometimes I do stuff off the top of my head, and sometimes I write essays and I like to share them with you. One of the things that I'm doing is one of my secrets. I'm now publicly talking about a secret that I've been using, and I thought about saving this for a specific workshop, and undoubtedly we will do a workshop, but let me just talk to you about it. If you look at the diagram behind me, the Enneagram, which you can look up, Google Images or other things. Most people know, understand, who have heard of it, understand about 2% of it. The Enneagram of personality is about 2% of what the Enneagram is, roughly like astrology. There's this type, this type, this type, this type, and so forth. But what the Enneagram actually is a paper computer. It speaks of process, not placement. It's dynamic. And if you map the process of anything you're trying to accomplish around the outside edge of the Enneagram, because there's 10 numbers, 0 and a 9 at the top, then 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there's a space, and 5, 6, 7, 8, back to 9 at the top. If you can map any process around the edges of the Enneagram, you will then be able to use the internal lines to kind of see the connections between these things. And I'll go into this more deeply another time because I want to share with you what it is that I've been doing. So what I did, and this happened first when a lady asked if there was a heroine's journey. And I thought about it, and I have to admit that my thought was process. Oh, here's Tananarife. So I will let me bring her in and give her co-host so she can do whatever she wants to do. Sweetheart, as soon as you're ready, please come in and say hi to everybody. So what I did was you can take a process, we want to make this movie, okay? And I could take the 10 steps of the hero's journey, the confrontation with the challenge, reject the challenge, accept the challenge, road of trials, gathering allies and powers, confronting evil, being defeated, the dark night of the soul, the leap of faith, confront evil and succeed, and the student becomes the teacher, the movement to the higher level. That's 10 steps. I can map those around the edge of the circle, with the first step being the 0 at the top, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And by looking at the connective lines, I'm looking at the internal dynamics of the process of making this movie, or writing a book, or the structure of the book. That's one of the things about life writing that I really love, is being able to use a plot structure that enables you to not just plot the story, but plot the process of writing it, or look at any aspect of your life. So I've been going through the different steps, and today it was step 6, which is the dark night of the soul. Okay, the step 5 on the Enneagram would be confront evil and be defeated. Okay, so looking at step 6 is connected to step 3, and then up at the top, step 0 and step 9. So I wrote the following essay. Question of the day. The last time you were in the dark night, how did it relate to the road of trials? How did it relate to accepting the challenge, to completing one journey and beginning another? And if, Tananarife, when you're ready, just speak up, because I'm not able to see you raise your hand at the moment. So just
I'll be ready any minute.
Okay, just when you're ready, just let me know and I'll give you the floor. So, viewed as Sammy's story, Sinner's most terrifying moment is when Sammy is tempted by the vampire, Merrick, told that his spiritual beliefs would be respected and his music lauded and preserved. The hive of bloodsuckers really wanted his heart, his soul. So, there was death and weakness and no one to save him. To answer these questions that I posed means looking into the internal structure, not the linear structure of the story. This is art, not science. There will be no absolute and objective answers. How you answer is a reflection of the way you see human beings in the universe in which they find themselves. So, how did Sammy's moment of greatest testing relate to the road of trials? Well, as Super Chicken said, you knew the job was dangerous when you took it. His challenge could be phrased as to escape slavery. That was the essence of the trap sharecroppers found themselves in. From that perspective, Christianity was an anesthetic, not a medication. The opiate of the masses, as somebody said. He had to go beyond it because it functioned to help slaves or sharecroppers deal with the colossal amount of homicidal rage that would have resulted had their fear and resentment ever boiled over him. His father knew the dangers that awaited him. Vampire Merrick was just a symbol of all the temptation that would hit him if he tried to walk away from the known world. And here's a hint to you. Without an internal moral compass, the whispers of evil will twist you to their will when you're under pressure. Note how rapidly the three gates would warn you away from the Merricks of the world. He lies, he kills, he corrupts, and yet I still had people saying that what he was saying to them was tempting enough to accept the gift of vampirism. I was horrified to hear that, but it really did happen. And I'm just going to say, for the sake of fun, you can guess who this person voted for. So the road of trials is the gap between where you are and where you need to be to accomplish your goals. These will be both internal and external tests and resources, yes? So I'll leave this as an exercise for the reader. What resources did he need? What did he already have? What lessons did he learn? Actions did he take between the time he left his father's church with guitar in hand and the time he stumbled back, bloody and shaken, and really reborn? We saw that at the very beginning of the movie. We could dive into this for hours, but remember, the Dark Knight will also relate to his original acceptance of the challenge, as well as his fulfillment and movement to the next level. It would be impossible to answer these questions without imposing a philosophical framework. We're not here to learn a specific philosophy. We're here to encourage you to clarify your philosophy. And when you learn to do it with films, you'll also be able to look at your own life and ask the same questions, perhaps about the greatest dark night of your life. How did it relate to the daily disciplines of existence, to the path to your next level? How did it relate to the core challenge you had accepted at that point in life? And perhaps, how did the amount of pain relate to the brightness of your victory and the height of your growth? Answering these questions about your life and the art you create and the art you appreciate will teach you things that cannot be put into words. I encourage you to get to work. So,
This is
tonight right there,
my
there
subtle
you
way of
are.
butting in,
Please.
everybody. So I just kind of randomly, first of all, hello to all the familiar faces. It's great to see you. I will unfortunately have to also cut out early from this meeting because of pre-production. We have a long day of meetings ahead of us, 3 interviews for a position on the crew, and our first fall crew meeting with visual effects, special effects, production designer. Did you already tell them all this, honey?
Not all of it, no.
Okay,
Go
yeah,
right ahead, please. Don't
everybody.
hold
So
yourself
this is
back.
where we get to let everybody introduce themselves and try to do some family building and give them a hint about, what some of the challenges will be on the shoot to get ahead of them as quickly as we can. And I guess, as I said in my newsletter, I'm just still pretty floored at how, even though 2025 is horrific in so many ways on the political front, it's proven to be a really instructive year for me in terms of learning things about myself I didn't know. Um, Talents I have, interests that I can actually pursue. I guess it's not uncommon for people, when you get to a certain age and you're looking at, okay, what didn't haven't I done yet? And you buy that sports car or go mountain climbing, whatever it is. I guarantee you it will not be a sports car or mountain climbing for me. But as I said in my newsletter, this is the week or last week was really the week I felt comfortable first saying the words, I'm a director. And also I'm a drummer. And 2 years ago, I would never have thought those things about myself, and really not even on the horizon, not even on the horizon. So that has been very eye-opening to me in terms of wondering what are the other things I don't know yet about myself. One of my recurring dreams, and I don't often remember my dreams, but last night I had one of my recurring dreams for the first time in this house. I've often had a recurring dream that I discover there's a third floor with hidden unused rooms. Has anyone ever had that? I ran that by threads, and apparently that's a very common dream. Thank you for the on the drumming, Jaime. So because that dream happens to coincide with these events that are going on in our lives right now, I'm thinking that imagery of the hidden rooms, like the real estate that we're sitting on that we don't even know about, is a message that I also have hidden rooms within myself that I have not explored for whatever reason. And maybe it's just a reminder from my unconscious to that this is just the beginning. And I have no idea what's ahead for me, not only in terms of my personal gratification and personal growth, but the impact that I can have beyond myself, my family. I don't know. And it's going to be a wonderful adventure to figure it out. That's all I got, honey. Oh, I muted you. Sorry.
Yes, that's okay, because I was typing.
Yeah.
As I was saying to them, this
Yeah,
is
those cute.
this is the moment. This is one of those moments in lives when we get to learn new things about each other. And what I'm learning about you in this sense is pretty much what I picked up on when we were doing Danger Word, that under stress and exhausted, you will still see answers and you stay on task. And that was a great moment. I wish I'd had the courage to follow up and the clarity to follow up on that and for us to immediately go into doing another movie, but we were waiting for somebody to come to us rather than taking control. And that was a grave error. That was an
And
error, but it's understandable.
even then, we weren't even thinking about directing, interestingly enough. Even though we were helping with performance, we were helping with logistics. So what
We raised the money.
we raised the money. I mean, we just, I mean,
We were
I think
writers
it's,
and producers,
yeah, I
but we
just have
weren't
so much.
directors.
Yeah. I just have so much respect for directors. I think that's what it is. Even when you watch the show The Studio on Apple Plus, I don't know if anyone watches that show. It is hysterical. I know you're like Apple Plus, who watches that? But almost every episode is about the power of the directors. Like, no one wants to tell Ron Howard, no one wants to give him notes on his movie well, give him notes on the movie. I won't spoil it, but it's every episode almost. The director is on the pedestal. The director is the one everyone's bowing and scraping to. And I think for that reason, and I kind of feel the same way, I've never thought of myself as that. Now, don't get me wrong, both with the drumming, because I literally don't know the names of all the pieces of my drum kit. Okay. I've never played with it, like, not, I haven't played drums with a band, right? So I get that I'm on a growth journey. I have a long way to go in terms of that, as well as directing. We haven't been on the set yet as directors. As frenzied as our days are getting with meeting back to back to back to back, which is what today is turning into, it's not the same as being on the set, cameras rolling, sound down, and you say action. And I can't wait to get to that feeling. I know from Danger Word that half the time I was like, oh my God, this is the best thing imaginable. And half the time I was like, oh my God, what are we doing here? So hopefully there'll be less of the latter and more of the former. But
Well,
either
one thing's for
way,
sure, we will be vastly more prepared
oh, we sure
than we
will.
were for Danger Word. We didn't do, the pre-production. We were not involved in pre-production, so I don't know what pre-production happened that we didn't know about. But I'm thinking, they were trying to work it out on the set.
On the set, and plus one of our sets wasn't even prepared. It looked totally different from the photographs. And we had to you had to choreograph that chase scene on the fly because all of our our everything had changed. Anyway, that's life. Please keep us in your thoughts. We have an 80-year-old co-lead and a 10-year-old lead in this. This is probably this. In fact, looking at our IMDb page, this will be the biggest project our young actress has ever done. And this is the oldest our elder actress has ever been while she's working on a project. So keep us in your thoughts in terms of their energy, that no one gets sick, that we need them so much. They are both excellent. They are our secret weapon. All the other stuff is just to give them a showcase and carry this film. So send good thoughts out to us.
Okay. Well, you take care, and I'll
All
join you
right,
over there as
hun.
soon as I can. Bye
All
bye.
right, bye-bye.
So, my piece of this is to acknowledge my fear You you feel fear to the extent that you're not taking action. Powerful emotions exist to motivate action, emotion. Fear can be numbed by going into flow state, like binging Netflix. But if you can go into flow state, learning something or developing a capacity that actually will help you face whatever the situation is that you're afraid of, now you're using the fear the way it was intended to be used. For instance, if I could send a message in a bottle, and I've said this before, back to my 20-year-old self, 23-year-old self, when I hit fear in terms of sparring in the martial arts because some bullying stuff came bubbling back up, I could have used that fear to motivate myself to beat the heavy bag for hours every day. You could literally visualize the fighters that I was terrified of, and I could have done that and didn't, just hit the heavy bag and hit the heavy bag. And the more fear I felt, the harder I hit, the faster I'd move, just for let that terror motivate me. And if I had done that day after day until I was collapsed in tears and sweat, within a relatively short period of time, I would have found out that I was getting better. I was getting faster. I was starting to stop them. I was starting to deal with them, to back them up. I didn't know that technique, which we call the spider technique, that I got partially from Scott Sonnen and partially from some other things. But that's an example of what happens when you use your fear. So what am I afraid of? I'm afraid that our skills are not up to the challenge. I'm afraid that we will blow it. I'm afraid that we will not have another opportunity like this. If if you if I use that fear to motivate myself to say, okay, how can I plan everything? Because, like in Stoicism, you divide the world into two parts: the things you cannot change and the things you can change. And they suggest the things that you cannot change, separate yourself. Don't worry about those things. Focus all your attention on the things you can change. If you do that, you will start changing the things that you thought you could not change. So people are constantly giving themselves grief because they focus on the things they can't change while they're not taking full advantage of the things they can change. So that is a one of the primary lessons. It may be maybe the single most important lesson in all of Stoicism. To the degree that Stoicism, Buddhism, and Taoism, are all saying very similar things there, that's not because they come from a similar cultural root or a similar text. In my mind, it's because it's the truth. And it's a little bit like saying somebody saw the moon. They looked up and they saw the moon. They didn't hear about the moon from somebody else. They looked and saw it for themselves. So these disciplines have that similarity because really wise people in all these different cultures went deep enough that they saw the same truth. That's the way I look at it. That if you go deep enough, there is only one truth. There are lots of different perspectives on it, and lots of different ways of viewing it, and lots of people who will say they've found a truth when they really haven't. So you have to be willing to test these things. The aspects of these paths that can be tested, you test them. And when you test enough of them, you'll start noticing that they're all pointing in the direction of the same, what they all consider to be the same underlying reality. So two of those realities would be that thing about focus on what you can change, focus on what you can do. And the other one would be to remember that you're going to die. Remember that life is finite. Remember that everything you fear is in some ways a version of that fear of death. That if you look directly at that, then you get all time management, all goal setting, all sense of I want to accomplish something during the time that I have, all need for courage. Because if you can deal with the fear of death, you can deal with all the smaller fears much more easily. If you know that nobody can save you from death, then you can have that sense of, well, why exactly am I worried about their opinion? The worst that can happen to me is already absolutely fated. So deal with that, and you get the courage to act because you love life. That paradoxically admitting that you're going to die, that memento mori thing, makes you want to get work done today. Love your kids today. Go out and watch that sunset today. Write that book today. Do it today. It's up, sluggard, and waste not life. There will be sleep enough in the grave, as Benjamin Franklin said. All these people, all these traditions are saying the same thing. The three gates that we talk about often. Your ego will have a very difficult time passing the three gates. Your ego will try to tell you that it is easier to be dishonest. It is reasonable to be cruel. And that you don't want to look at everything in terms of, is it efficient and effective? What matters is how you feel. To focus on the gates means that at first you are consciously asking, how can I deal with this situation and be honest? How can I deal with this situation and be kind? How can I deal with this situation and be sure? How can I take actions that I'm sure are efficient and effective? And you do that kind of coming from the outside, but eventually, in order to act spontaneously with honesty and kindness and efficiency and effectiveness, you have to find the part inside yourself that feels these things, that feels it. It's a little bit like going into a martial arts school and you start imitating the black belts. Okay, you try to move like them, you try to think like them, you strut around like them, whatever. And over time, you begin to internalize the states that produce those behaviors. When you do that, when you've actually internalized it, it's like you used a ladder to get onto the roof. Once you're on the roof, you don't need the ladder anymore. Once you use a boat to cross the river, once you're on the other side of the river, you don't carry around the boat with you. I sought teachers, but it was like teachers to help me find a treasure map. Once I found the treasure map and started digging, X marks the spot, and I started finding treasure, I'm not looking for other treasure maps. I'm interested in digging here and finding more treasure. Until I stop finding treasure, I'm not going to look for more maps. You're looking for the place inside yourself that when you listen to those whispers under stress, they guide you, that you find yourself doing spontaneously the thing that you would do had you stopped and thought about it for a week. You take the right action. You say the right words. You pause before you react. I don't have all of those things. I have more of them than I used to. When it comes to making a movie, in my honest estimation, directing is a level above writing, because directors have to understand story, but writers do not have to understand all the different things that directors have to do. And I'm finding out just how ignorant I was of what it took to create this. This is why, to create something as tiny as a 15-minute short. So when people talk about Hollywood and, how come they're always repeating themselves and how come it's all lousy and how come this, how come that, they're basically just speaking from ignorance. They literally have no idea what it takes to do it. They have no idea that there are really smart, really hardworking people trying their best to do the best they can do. That so many business people have come into Hollywood thinking, oh, I'll just, I can do better than them, and just ran away with their tail between their legs. So many artists thought, I am this great artist and I will take over Hollywood with my vision, and just got the hell beat out of them. Not because the people there were bad, but because it really is hard. It really does take an amazing set of skills that I don't even know what I don't know. I'm starting to grasp the actual shape of it enough to be able to ask questions of the people that know. And that's a major point. I People ask, when should you stop researching? When you're working on a book. And one of my answers is you can stop researching when you can ask an actual expert in that field intelligent questions, and questions that make them stop and think, and questions that make them feel like, oh, that was a good question. Because that's what you really want. You don't need to have the answers. You need to have the questions, and you need to be able to find the people who have the answers. So we're surrounding ourselves with talented people. And the hope and the prayer is that these people are just as smart as us, or smarter, but they've spent their time, they've invested their time doing different things. So in Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill says that the only known way to compensate for lack of ability is the mastermind process, where you find people who have the skills and abilities that you do not have, or in some cases have the resources like money, and you create a tribe. And the first thing I'm going to do on Friday, because we got 4 days to shoot, and on Friday it's set up and maybe get a few shots, and then the actors come in on Saturday and Sunday, and then Monday we do the last of it and pick up and then clean up. On Friday, the most important thing I can do is to talk to everybody who's working for us and ask them, how does working on this project move your dreams forward? If we do this right, how does this help you create the life that you want for yourself and your family? How does this help move your career forward? I have asked that question of every person that we have hired. It always works well, because suddenly they realize I'm not just seeing them as a machine. I'm seeing them as a human being with hopes and dreams and needs. And if for just a little while we can create a tribe, a little family, where we're all moving forward together. Yes, they're facilitating my dream, but I'm facilitating theirs too. If we can do that, then we've got a chance. And I'll be able to feel like I did the very best I could do. All I can focus on are what are the things I can change? What are the things I can influence? There's a whole world of things I cannot influence. But if I put all of my attention on what I can focus on and be prepared to give it everything I've got, to leave nothing in the locker room, leave all the blood and skin on the field. If I do that with what in the warrior parlance would be referred to as resolute acceptance of death, I'm going to give it everything I've got, and I have to give up the results to the universe. It's not for me to say, it's for me to do the best I can do, to help others do the best they can do, for me to be the best I can be, to help others be the best they can be, and see how it all works out. It's 2 weeks now. It's getting frisky. All right. So that is the conversation for today. So what I'd like to do now is invite everybody to ask, have any comments, questions, or requests about either what was said today or what has been said in previous weeks, wins or losses in your lives, things you'd like to report to us, things you'd like to workshop. And so let's throw the floor open and see what we can see. So volunteer or you will be voluntold. Let's see. All right, we're going to start with Faye Snowden.
I knew. Hello, everybody. Just lots of thoughts, The first one I would say is, has anyone here ever used the Enneagram for character building? Because I did that with one of my books. Character
Sure.
Building survived already 3 books, or 3 books about to survive a fourth, but I'm wondering if anybody
Yes.
tried that. Yeah.
And there are tons of books on the Enneagram of character, and some of them I believe are specific for writing. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of good information out there. I'm not the person to tell you what those Enneagram types are.
Yeah.
That's not what I studied. The Enneagram is primarily an oral tradition in the Sufi community, kind of taught behind closed doors. The only piece of it that has leaked out is that 2% that's about personality. There's 98% about the process of life, any process that basically doesn't get taught, at least partially, because it's so complicated.
Hmm.
There's very little writing on this stuff, but I learned it from a Sufi master, so I can
Wow.
bring that in and we can speak about these things. But it's yes, it can absolutely be used for guiding, building the characters in your story, and to see how different characters are different aspects of each other and different aspects of the whole, and how they balance each other and relate to each other and where the conflicts are going to be, so forth. Great tool.
Hmm. Yeah, great. Yeah. That's about it. I'll let somebody else go. I see Otis has his hand.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Thank you.
Otis. Otis.
Unmute. Okay, there we are. Hey,
Hey there.
um, I'm just talking about you managed to give me a shout out the other day for this, but yeah, I published 11 stories since joining Life Writing.
Okay, how long ago did you join?
Um, the December before last.
Okay,
So
so you've been part of life writing for almost 2 years, for two
yeah, year and a
for
half,
one and a
2 years. Yeah.
half year, for a year and a half. Okay, great. Would you give us the short version of what it is that you're doing and how we have been able to help you? Because we really want to drill in, because you're having a successful process there. And I really want to congratulate you and honor you for that. The responsibility is all yours. However, we're glad to be midwives to the degree that you're doing all the pushing,
Right.
but we can cheer you on. So tell us how you used what we teach here to get those 11 publications, and that is huge, people. That is huge to go from 0 to 11 publications in a year and a half. Are you kidding me? I frankly, it verifies that this process, which I observed, not created. I did not create it. The
Mm,
6 steps of the life writing process were synthesized through observation and listening to experts tell me about what works. So please share with us how you used it.
okay. Yeah, synthesized and boiled down and given to us like Prometheus here. What we've managed to do, or what I've managed to do, is just pretty much follow that to the letter and adding a couple more of my own twists. So yeah, I make sure and write at least a short every month to keep that going. I'm writing a novel, at the same time or whatever, but at that
Yeah,
time
it's
I'm at
fun.
least getting a short done. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
consider
then
that the difference between training the specific skills of your sport or competing in games and going to the gym to build up the muscles and the
mm,
wind and so forth and so on. Short stories are how you gain the skill. Novels are where you get paid. Screenplays are where you get paid really well.
mhm,
so go ahead.
working on that. Yep. Um, I want the money and the recognition and everything. So first
Sure.
off, what I do whenever I write a story like Hades Redemption or something that I think is really cool personally, I try to aim that at magazines that will pay a lot but also have high turnaround. Like they won't read your script forever. Like so
Okay.
magazines like
So let me
Apex.
let you pause again.
Hmm.
Okay, note the strategy here. He starts with the best paying magazines that also have a fast turnaround. So the idea being, if he wins, he gets a lot of money, but if they say no, they don't make him wait for a year. So that,
Hmm.
once again, that's excellent. Keep going.
Hmm. And then once they go through that circuit, like once I've tried a magazine or two on the
Hmm.
higher end with the fast turnaround, if they turn me down, I start looking for like mid-tier markets that are like really specialty stories, like African American stories or cyberpunk stories or whatever. I try to find mid-tier magazines that have like something like that going on and then send to them. And hopefully they have a pretty fast turnaround too.
Okay.
And then stories I've had that are resistant to even that kind of publication. Um, there are countless online journals and magazines that will publish your stuff. They just want anything that's formatted well. And I use those to build up credits, and the credits look good for the mid-tier magazines and everything else that I'm doing.
So do those pay anything?
The lowest tier of them usually do not.
Okay, so I know that my first publications I got like a fifth of a cent a word or paid in contributors copies. So that's roughly the same thing. It's
Hmm.
still passing that line. So what is the
Hmm.
most you've been paid at this point?
Like 100 from a mid tier.
Fine. So you got $100. In a year and a half, you went from zero to getting $100, which is more than I was getting for my first. I went looking for Larry Niven. When I realized,
Hmm.
oh my God, fifth of a cent a word, I'm getting a check for $26 here. It's so that's good. Keep going. Anything else?
Hmm. That's it. Other than like, I use, oh, to answer Kurt Rama's question, I use Duotrope. I use
Okay.
Duotrope because you can see so much, and I advise that to anyone. You can like look at percentage graphs of acceptance rates from magazines, and you can like examine their turnaround rate, all of that. So I highly suggest, if not
That's
Duotrope,
fantastic.
something like it.
I'd
Yeah,
like you to post that over in Life Writing and
I will. Hmm.
to help guide people. You be our Duoscope guru in that sense. People are also asking, where do you find magazine to submit to? My answer for that is, where are you reading your short stories? Remember, you're
Hmm.
supposed to be reading 10 stories for every story you write. That's your
Hmm.
market research. It's not just craft lessons,
Yeah,
it's market research. So Otis is suggesting something different. And that is, I'm a dinosaur in that sense. I'm just looking for
right.
the next tar pit. So the fact that there are different routes in now, you guys are going to have to find that for each other. Okay. And
Duotrope
what
is,
Otis,
yep,
great, fantastic.
it's Cerebro. That's what it feels like, Cerebro. Like I feel like Professor X in that. You know what I mean? It's like
Yes.
there's so much accent, excess.
See, and there are a lot of tools, and I, what I am trying to do is build a community that will be able to provide these resources. I can provide an overall structure, a framework, but first of all, that framework isn't going to work for everybody. And within that framework, in each of the different of the 6 steps, write at least a sentence a day, write 1 to 4 short stories a month, polish and submit at least one, don't rewrite except editorial request, read 10 times what you write, and repeat this process 100 times. I could write a book on each one of those steps, but if you just do it, you'll teach yourself. So I would like very much for you to journal what you're experiencing here, because by the
Hmm.
time you sell your first book, you'll be able to teach a class. You should,
Hmm.
by the time you actually sell a book, you'll be able to teach a class. And that's another way that you can earn money. We're talking about,
Hmm.
how do you market? How do you do this? How do you do that? So I could not be prouder of you, Otis. You're doing exactly what I want my students to do. And we've had many people have successes like this, but yours is notable, and it needs to, just huzzah. What I would like very much to do is to have everybody cheer you. I'm going to move my spotlight and unmute yourselves in 3 cheers for Otis. It's like,
Go,
Hooray! Hooray!
go.
Hooray,
Hooray! Well done,
hooray!
Otis.
Hooray,
Yay!
let's hear for
Yay!
Stop,
Otis!
don't
Great,
stop.
great
Congratulations.
success.
Yeah.
Great.
there you go. I mean, we are not trying anything. We're building a tribe of people who believe in being honest and kind, but working their butt off and winning. You know what I'm talking about? There's no games. Let's win this. Okay. So, and it's also, look at the diversity here. We're talking about race, gender, age. This is the world. We have 340 people on the Life Writing site now. By the time we get 1,000, we're going to hit a critical mass that is going to do something really special that has never quite existed before. That's my projection. So please, if you're over there on lifewrite.com, and participating in either talking about your writing or your life, and you like what's going on there, be sure to share that. Be sure to share that with people who you feel would be appropriate for that group, who are willing. We don't do politics there, but we do talk philosophy, which is more basic and more important. Okay. Just couldn't be happier. So let's move on. Let's see who else wants to raise their hand, Leone is already thinking, oh my God, he's going to call on me. But no, I'm not going to. Yes, I am. Faked you out. All right.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Um, yes, it's been very productive. So today, this morning, I started working on finalizing what I want my logo to be for my business. I hadn't mentioned before, I got an LLC last October here in Fargo to do two things for services and for goods. My services will be writing, which would be blogs, web copy, social media content, anything like that. And the second part of it is cyber art. So I have LS Creative Solutions and I have LS Cyber Art, where I can sell goods. And those goods would be greeting cards and stickers and just, fun things. Um, and so what I'm really excited about is I've narrowed it down to about six uh, different logos. And I was thinking that what I'd like to do is I'd like to go to the Life Writing site and have a poll. And I'm going to share it with you guys. I have not shared these with anyone. And I'd like to share it with you guys to get a poll and to see which logo feels better.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
And you are absolutely welcome to do that over on Life Right. And that is exactly the sort of use of that community that I hope. So post that in discussion where people can see it. You put your poll there. And I hope that you get exactly the information that you need. Is there anything I can do to help you today?
You can help. I have to stop procrastinating. You know what you were talking about earlier, about fear. And it's so weird. Again, I woke up this morning and I'm like, I have to get this done. I got my LLC. I did the first part. I know what I can do. I know that I want to have this business. I know I want to have something that's mine so that I don't have to go and work for anybody and deal with the stuff that I had to deal with, earlier on in my career, misogyny and all that stuff. I just want to work for myself and I want to
Right.
write and be happy. So I was thinking, God, what if I don't do anything? And I'm like, why? Why am I telling myself or just postponing or delaying and just go
Okay, so
and take action?
let me ask you a couple questions. First of all, what is all you have to do to win is to move forward by 1% a day. You move forward by 1% a day, you've improved by 47 times in a single year. I mean, it's massive. So even improving 1% per week is massive. Let me ask you the question. Do you know what is the smallest unit of work you need to do every day in order to keep moving forward? What is that unit? It's like with writing, it's a sentence a day. It's right there in the first
Mhm.
principle. What is it for you?
It's like going onto my Canva and producing goods.
What kind
For
of
me,
goods?
so I have, let's see, the most important part of that would be greeting cards.
Okay,
And
so when you say, how long does it take you to make a greeting card?
it doesn't take me too long because I already kind of have in mind what I want. So
Please,
I have the
please be
greeting
more
cards. I have
specific.
them. I
How
have,
long does it take?
well, how long does it take? Okay. Say per each one, maybe a half an hour.
Okay, okay. Now, is production the problem? Is that, so if you look at the life writing process, there is production, there is sales and marketing, there is research. Okay. So, to develop the strategy, that's the chain. You have to produce, you have to finish it, you have to market it, you have to continually seek to get better and continually seek to expand your network. Where is your chain broken? If you are producing, then it doesn't sound like that's your problem. Is your problem marketing it?
It's marketing, and I am working on that. I'm actually right now listening to a Roland Martin, I guess, show that he had on YouTube, and he's talking about marketing and talking about how to utilize YouTube for marketing and like to get money that
Okay,
way.
so
So
what is the
I'm in the learning
smallest
process.
what is the smallest unit? Because you want to learn and do at the same time. Because otherwise, if you're not careful, you'll learn for years and never get around to doing it. Okay? So
Yeah.
are you going to, what is it that you need to do? What is it that you could do? What is the smallest thing you could do that would actually be a movement forward in a given day or in a given week? So let's say,
I can
okay,
I
so what
can
might it be?
I can start out printing sample packs and to reaching out to vendors.
Okay. So the smallest unit might be to send one sample pack to one vendor. Is it
Okay.
sending one email to one vendor? Make sure that it's small enough that you can actually guarantee you'll do it. What is the smallest unit that there is no logical reason? They'll be just it's just emotional reasons. What is the smallest unit of action so small that there is no logical reason not to do it so that we can expose the emotions underneath? What is it?
I can make a phone call.
Great, great. And that feels uncomfortable to you, right?
Yes,
Great.
Oh,
a little bit, yes.
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic. That's what I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself. I'm going to mute everybody because I want to dial in. So, unmute yourself, Leon. And so let's continue this because this is a good conversation. So,
Okay.
making one phone call or sending one email, either of those things can be done in 5 minutes. Okay, 10 minutes. Either of those things are therefore within the range of what it makes logical sense that you could do that every day. There's no logical reason not to do it. Now, you're going to fail. You're going to find out that you still are blocking yourself. In all likelihood, if not, I'm happy to be wrong. But in all likelihood, if you set up that is your atomic goal, that is the smallest unit, and you're still not doing it, you then get to sit back and observe your reactions. No guilt, just, isn't that interesting? Even though I know why I want this, even though this is a small enough action that there's no logical reason not to do it, I still don't do it. Why didn't you do it? You know.
Fear? There's that
Yes,
saying, fear of success,
that's right.
fear of
Okay,
something. Yeah.
yeah. So it would be fear of either success or failure, fear of
Mhm.
rejection,
Yeah.
perhaps, and the death of dreams, fear that they will say yes and you'll send it out and nobody will like it, or there might even be fear that it would be successful. So let's take a look at that just to clarify things. If it was fear of success, why would you fear success? Why specifically might success be dangerous?
Because that means that I'm going to have to do a job or just that just means I don't know. I don't know.
See,
Um,
so you
it
want to
doesn't make
look.
sense. It makes
No, no,
no
no, no, no. It,
sense.
it does it does make sense. It only doesn't make sense if your model of human beings does not include fear. If you don't see how much human behavior is motivated by fear.
Yeah.
And fear, it could be fear of, let me give you just, a few possibilities. If you succeed, people will be jealous. If you succeed, people who need you to be the same as you were will feel like they're losing you and reject you in advance. If you succeed, you'll be a target. If you succeed, people will have even higher expectations of you. See, see the thing. These are all things I've actually heard from people, and many of them that I've experienced myself. You will lose friends. You will lose companions on the road when you start moving at a speed that they're afraid they cannot match. If they see you zipping, if their egos are healthy, they'll be able to love you anyway. They'll say, "Go, Leon, great, fantastic, girl." And of course, they would hope that from time to time you'd call them up and say, "Hey, let's get together for coffee." That you won't forget them. But there will be other people who are jealous, and yet other people who are afraid to try themselves. So they have a mythology that it is impossible to succeed, and your success rips apart their mythology and makes them realize they're afraid. So those are all just possibilities. I have no idea what those are. But whatever it is, what I'm saying is don't be ashamed of it. Don't be ashamed of
I
it.
know that feeling. When I was 25, I left LA to move to Georgia. And all my friends would be like, "Oh, you'll be back, you know, you're gonna miss us on." But I couldn't wait to leave. And I was gone for 9 years. And they were the best 9 years. And I lost friends, but I kind of know I left because of how my friends were. You know, it was like I was good as long as I was doing whatever they wanted me to do,
Thank
kind
you.
of thing.
You were okay as long as you reinforced their egos.
Yeah.
As
So I
soon as
stopped.
you, as soon as you, I have lost so many friends, and I don't want to go into it, but there's a specific demographic that cannot handle me now, or has a hard time handling me now. And like I said, it's not something I'm going to get into right here, but it hurt at first. The women in that demographic had one form of attack. The men in that demographic had a different form of attack to in essence threaten to exile me from their tribe. You're not going to be one of the guys. I'm not going to support you. I'm going to kick you out of the tribe. Women will either do the mom thing of trying to instill guilt, how dare you not need me, or they will imply that they will withhold sexual energy. And considering that I'm happily married, it's bizarre to watch that come up. It's like, why do you think I should care? I mean, it's like I wouldn't. And the thing that's even funnier is that they will do this whole thing. Well, I would reject you, Steve. And I said, that's okay. I'm not interested in you anyway. It's like if you say that, and they'll get offended. It's like, well, I could reject you, but how dare you say you're not interested in me? So guys are kind of saying you will die if you don't have our support. Women are kind of saying you will not reproduce if you don't do what they want you to do. And in both cases, you have to kind of realize they can't preserve your life. That no matter what happens, you're going in the box by yourself. That you have to be true to yourself. This thought of wanting to create greeting cards, my guess is that the content of those cards are in alignment with your values. They are an expression of who you are. That you want to make money doing something that expresses what you think people are, what you think the world is. It is that Buddha baby thing of earth below, heaven above, no one in the world like me. You want to give your unique gift to the world and get paid well for it. You will therefore scare all the people who are afraid to show who they really are, or people who thought that being an artist meant that the world would be the path to their door. Tananarive and I made the terrible mistake of 72 hours after we met, we were saying we could build an empire together, but it took us another 20 years to realize we actually had to build the empire ourselves. That was a colossal error on our part, and I can freely and openly admit that. But like some of our friends said, Steve, you weren't ready then, you're ready now. So it's like, forgive yourself. The people who are your tribe will cheer for you. Either you will climb the mountain without them, in which case they cheer you on, or they will climb the mountain with you, or they're already on the mountain saying, come. I used to train. I was hoping to climb Kilimanjaro once upon a time. And I trained on a place called Dog Mountain. It's a 3,000 foot mountain in the Columbia Gorge in Washington State. The notion is if you can climb that mountain in 3 hours, you're fit enough to climb Kilimanjaro. In other words, if you can ascend 1,000 feet per hour, you're fit enough to climb Kilimanjaro. And I noticed something very interesting. When you're climbing up from the beginning, the road is crowded. Lots of people are trying to climb. But as you get further and further up the mountain, more and more of those people are dropping away. And then you reach a point where you're climbing by yourself. And then you reach a point where the people who've been to the mountaintop are coming back down and they're kind of saying, keep going. You're getting close. Don't quit now. And then when you get to the top and you rest, there's almost like a picnic area up there where people are eating their lunch and looking down on the Columbia Gorge. And there isn't a lot of conversation. But those who've made the climb are kind of looking at each other. They realize, oh my God, isn't this view wonderful? And there's that sense of, you're like me. You're the same kind of person I am. You could be any race, any gender, many different ages, but there was a commonality of spirit that we would take a day when most people are just chilling at home and challenge yourself. And the reward is a view that you cannot have. And if somebody had taken you in a helicopter to the top, the view wouldn't look the same because you didn't make the climb yourself. And the food wouldn't taste the same because you didn't challenge yourself in that way. What I'm trying to say to you is that if fear is that issue, you're not hallucinating it and you're not silly to feel it. It's real. And you will not be able to bring everybody with you because not everybody was made for who you really are. But you will not be alone either. That when you get to the top, you'll be with all the world and all the people who've been real about what it is that they wanted in this lifetime. And I believe in you. I believe in that human beings who commit, who give it everything, I believe we can have our dreams. I've always believed that. I've never stopped believing that. And what you will find is most people don't think that way. So I'm very glad that your presence here expands the community of people who do feel that way. And I hope that you will allow us to support you to express your beauty and your power at this precious moment in your life. Remember, at this moment, you're as old as you've ever been and as young as you'll ever be. This moment is what exists. It is real. You go for it, girl.
I will. I will. I appreciate this group so much. I appreciate you, Steve. I mean, it just fills my heart and it gives me that extra energy that I need.
Yes,
So,
that's
and
right. Do you realize without this and the other things that I do to center myself and to gain that perspective, I would be terrified right now. Because what is in front of us is literally everything we have been fighting for our entire lives and our entire relationship. And if we do this right, everything changes. And that means I have to die. I can't be the person I was and do this. I have to be the person I am. Does that make sense?
yeah,
The camel, which represents the ego, cannot pass through the eye of the needle. I cannot get there. The part of me that says I cannot get there. Steve, as I have known him, cannot get there. But whatever Steve really is, that part of me can get there. I'm dying to meet him. I'm dying to meet who I'll be on the other side of this. And I will not let my family down. And I will not let Tananarive down. And I've been training my whole life for this moment. And so have you.
yeah,
You take
yeah.
care,
I'm
sweetheart.
glad. I have a husband who's like 1,000% supportive. So it's
And
so
that is,
helpful.
do you do the blessing dance with him?
I have not.
Okay,
You know what?
so
I'm sorry.
go
We
ahead.
danced for the first time, like slow danced for the first time together at my friend's son's wedding. in May. First time we ever like danced together. And it was just like so magical for me. Because like we had never like really danced
I would
like that.
suggest that you create a daily ritual.
Okay.
Y- You've probably had the experience of looking back on older pictures of yourself and saying, God, I was beautiful. Why didn't I see it? Why didn't I see how beautiful we all were? How come we can't grasp how beautiful we are until how come we don't appreciate things until they're gone? And what I suggest you do is you have just a little bit of time every day where you celebrate your love and your sensuality and all of that, the animal side of you, the emotional side of you, the intellectual side of you, that you have a partner, that there are people who would give anything for what you have with him. And if just for a few minutes a day you can look at him and say, I see your beauty and your power, and thank you for walking this path with me. And he can say the same thing to you, that I chose you. I choose you every day. There's no one in the world I want to take this journey with but you. If you can do that and put on a song, dance together for 3 minutes once a day, you will change your entire marriage. You'll change your lives just by reconnecting on that level. You have the blessing of a partner who sees you and
Yeah, he
loves what he
does.
sees. So you make sure that he knows you see him. Because
Absolutely.
guys need to know that they're powerful, but they also want very much to feel that they're beautiful. They just don't know how to ask for it.
Yeah. Well, I refer to him as hot stuff. So
There you go. That's right. There you go. Absolutely. So it's that balance of beauty and power. So I freely acknowledge Tananarive is a powerful woman and a beautiful woman. And I cannot pretend to be less than her, because if I do that, am I not insulting her judgment? Isn't that a backward, isn't that really an insult? Says,
wow.
oh, I'm not worthy of her. Really? What are you really saying when you say that? Why not own it? Why not say, she's a lioness, I'm a lion, we are a hunting pair. Same thing for you and yours.
All
You
right.
you just you strut, honey. You prowl. Okay, don't back down to
Oh, I
anybody.
can
And
do
if they,
that.
that's right. There you go. So say, "Rawr." Come on, say it. "Rawr."
Well, my
Louder.
name,
"Rawr."
people do refer to my name like as a lion. So,
There you
I
go.
am what I
There you go.
am.
That's right. Popeye would
Okay.
approve. Okay, you take care.
Thank you so much, Steve.
You are so welcome. All right, remove spotlight and remove spotlight. And let's see. Maggie H. Hello, Maggie H. Would you like to talk to us, Maggie H? So Maggie H is not wanting to talk to us today. If you find your button and you want to come on, please let us know. Otherwise, I will not impose. So let's see. Who else would like to talk today? Anybody? Come on, raise your hand, because oh yes, Jim Schubert. Excellent. Jim, where are you? There you are.
Ready and waiting.
Unmute, unmute yourself.
All right. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I have to say something that Leonie said made it come clear in my mind. A couple of people have said really special things today that sort of gelled together. Um, Many, many years ago, as you can probably tell by the white in my beard, when I was young, I was a professional musician, and I had weekly lessons with I was a trumpet player, and I had weekly lessons with my teacher. And I wouldn't always he helped me develop the habit of doing sort of your idea, the 1% a day kind of thing, the idea of drilling specifically every day. But I always made sure that I had gotten my reps in time for the lesson. And it was usually on Fridays, but in time for the lesson, I always made sure I got my reps in. And when I first started coming to the fire dance, I found that, and you helped me start to structure my thinking around a story that I'm working on and so on. And several people reached out to me very kindly and offered to give me editorial feedback when the story's ready and that kind of thing. And it has been the same kind of experience of I don't want to let anybody down in this group. This group sort of lifts me up, and they've offered that. So it makes me make sure that I get at least a sentence a day, no matter how bad my days are. And so I want to say that I'm thankful and grateful for that anchor point in my life that's sort of
You're
bringing me back to that.
you're incredibly welcome, and I owe all of the people who were above me, when I came into the field, who were kind to me, and I would sit them down and humble myself and ask, how did you do it? And whether it was Octavia Butler or Harlan Ellison or Robert Heinlein or Larry Niven or any of these people who took their time with me, what I'm passing to you is what they passed to me, and also where that overlaps with what works in the martial arts, and what Steve Muhammad and others taught me, and Danny Inosanto, and I've been so blessed to know real grandmasters in multiple areas so that I can look and see, well, what works. And what works in the martial arts is you grow to the degree that you're practicing at home. Not just what you're doing in the school, but you can tell who's doing this stuff at home. Those are the people that move. Those are the people. The other people are waiting to be pulled by the energy of the teacher. If you let the teacher hold a torch and you're warming yourself by that torch and you're lighting your path by his light, that's one thing. But if you give yourself to the process, then you take your torch and you say, may I touch my torch to yours so that I too may burn. Those are the students that every teacher is looking for. Every teacher is looking for the students who want to burn, not just the ones who want to find a light or bask in your warmth. The people who want to burn are the ones who themselves can go and teach. And that is the way we light the world.
I like
So
that
good for
metaphor a
you,
lot.
Jim.
It's
Yeah.
interesting when you talk about the martial arts side of it too. I had the sort of weird luck of growing up in the middle of nowhere. Um, because and at the same time my parents had divorced and my father lived in Toronto. And so I would go down twice a year. And when I went to Toronto, I would always find people to study with, train with there in the martial arts. And they would give me homework assignments. And I would take those homework assignments. So basically, I'd spend 6 months drilling some basic thing that I'd been given as a homework assignment. So my basics became just extremely refined.
All there
And
is basics. That's all there
yeah,
is.
so I progressed a lot quicker than a lot of the people that were there all the time, just because I was only doing 3 or 4 things over and over and over again.
So here's what was happening to you, whether you realized it or not. When you do a given movement thousands of times, it stops being the external movement. It starts being the internal movement of bones and tendons and ligaments. And then it becomes an emotional expression. It's like, well, how do I have to feel to produce this? When you start asking yourself that question, you are internalizing the external. Okay, you're saying, where did this come from? So when you look at philosophies, Stoicism and Buddhism and this, and you ask yourself, instead of asking, well, what are they saying in the book? You ask, what is the place that people born thousands of miles apart are all seeing the same thing? Where do you have to go inside yourself to feel the truth of these statements? Where do you have to go inside yourself to produce this response to that stimulus? Where do you have to go inside yourself to find a new way of expressing something that people experience every day, for your art? That process of moving from the external to the internal, and the very, very, very specific, is one of the major things that there's an entire range of being that cannot be put into words. And what I just said right there is one of the outer edges of what can be put into words. Beyond that, it's my begging you, do the work, experience it, you'll know what I'm talking about. And when you meet a student who has done the work and they come back and they show you what they've been doing, you know whether or not they're in the space that you were in when you taught it to them. You can see it. It's like, oh, you understand. You get it. So you start with the external, and if it's a true path, you end with the internal and you can generate it spontaneously yourself. Teaching is always inducing, is always pulling from the student what they already know. Which is one of the reasons why I love the hero's journey, because we already understand it, because we've been through that pattern, 1,000,000 times. Go through it 1,000 times a day in large ways and small. Just keep going. The things that you're doing, you're on the path, okay? Listen to what I say, absorb what is useful, discard the rest. You're doing fine.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you
Oh,
to
you're so
everybody else
welcome.
that's given me all these ideas.
Yeah, I mean, this is great. This is life. Isn't this the way life is supposed to be? We all on our individual paths, but from time to time we get together and we have a picnic on the mountain. We kind of say, well, what's your journey been like? What's your journey been like? And then you encounter people coming down from a higher peak and they're saying, oh, this is that path and you can do this. They can't climb for you, but they can give you some information about what you're going to expect on the journey. Okay, so we are moving on because, all right. If there anybody else, I think I have time for one more person. So has Karama been waiting to be called on? Does she have something to say?
I always find this really useful. So I'll say that as we've been talking, I've been listening to everybody and learning and figuring out how it applies to my own situation and my own writing. And I've also been sort of, figuring out what my submission plan. I try to make a submission plan every week for, what stories I'm planning to submit, where I'm submitting, because I find the submission process takes a really long time. And I'm trying to make sure that I make appropriate time for that, but also not use it as an excuse for not
So
actually
here's the
doing the writing.
question. Why does it take a long time? Isn't it just punching, either typing something out, or, either printing something out and putting it in an envelope or pushing a button? What's taking so
I
much
mean,
time?
you would think it would be. I guess every time I start, I feel like it's going to be, but then it turns out to be, I feel like I'm trying to fit particular stories into particular publications. And sometimes it's places where I've read and I feel like it's a good fit. In those cases, it is really easy. But then in other times, it seems like it just seems like it takes a little time. And so
So are you submitting a story every month?
I was one of the things I almost put in the chat when Otis was speaking, because he was talking so much about this process and it was very helpful, was what folks' average number of subs per story is. And I think I'm at like a little over 2 right now. So, there are a few
Well,
places where I have.
now what? No, here's the thing. Do you mean the average number of submissions before you publish the story, or the average number of
Correct.
submissions before you stop trying?
Average numbers of submission at any one time. So like
Oh, okay.
how many editors, how many markets is my story in front of on average at any particular time? And
Okay,
so
that's a good question. Let me know what you find out, because there's no limit to how many times you can send a story out. You should create a list of the places you want to sell. Then you only have to make the list once. And then when you write a story, you start at the top of the list, which is either the most expensive or some other criteria that you get to make. And if it comes back, you just send it immediately to the next story, the next place on the list.
that's actually a really
Don't
good point.
don't do the same work twice. Never do the same work twice. Make your list once. Now you could say, this market horror, this market science fiction, this market black, African American thing, this market this. So that when you have a story, you say, well, what is this story? That's the right market. Send it. Let the fear motivate you to clarity. The antidote for fear paralysis is clarity. So when you know exactly why you're doing it and what you need to do, then sending it out is just how you do it. So the what and the why need to be crystal clear. The how, I think it's a lot easier. And even if it's uncomfortable, you could feel sick when you push that button. You could feel sick when you put that envelope in the mail. So what? Do it sick. I mean, it's like, it's just pain. It's just fear. You're going to get through it. But publication is forever.
That's actually really helpful because I mean, I average a little over two. Like right now, if I go and look at my duotrope, because I use duotrope too. If I go and look at my duotrope, I average a little over two. If I think about all of my writing, they're pending in front of at least two markets each
Okay.
on average. But I'm not doing. I am doing the same work more than once. And so your suggestion to
That's
just
right.
sort of make a list of all
That's
that,
right.
that's actually a
That's
really good
right. Okay,
suggestion.
remember the three gates. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it useful? Usefulness means you're constantly looking to upgrade your efficiency and effectiveness. How
Well,
can you
that's a
get
big
more
upgrade right
efficient
there.
and effective? That's right. Well, listen, that's great. I am going
Thank
to
you.
get off here so that I can. Oh, you're very welcome. So that I can work with the storyboarding and so forth. It's been wonderful as always being here, and thank you so much. We'll definitely be here next week, and we'll be here even on the day that we're starting to film. We'll probably do it from the set. So it's going to be wild. It's going to be interesting, but I'll see you next week. So everybody unmute yourselves and say goodbye.
Thanks,
Hey,
everyone.
Bye.
everybody.
Have
Hope
a
you
great
all
Thank
have
you
a
weekend,
so
good
much.
week.
Have a
everyone.
wonderful week.
Bye, y'all.
Fantastic.
Everybody.
And
Take
as
See
care,
you next
everybody.
week, I hope.
as always, the divinity within me salutes and acknowledges the divinity within each and every one of you. Namaste. Take
Namaste.
care.
Namaste.
Be well. Love yourselves. Love each other. Because I love you. Bye bye.